So your main gripe with Starfield is that you can't do it with the robot? It's kind of weird, man. Let's just get off the subject. Do you want to start the podcast, Matt?
No.
No?
No.
Yeah. Okay, so guys, welcome to the Level With Me podcast. I'm LevelCap. This is, you want to intro yourself?
Nope. All
This
you, baby.
is Matimi0. We're super famous, crazy famous on YouTube. He's a famous Twitch streamer. We play video games all week. We make content. And today we're going to talk about lots of stuff, but probably mostly Starfield. I assume that's been what you've been playing most, Matt?
It is. Some things I tell you in confidence, and
Oh, yeah, I can cut
forget
that out, Matt. I can cut that out.
Okay. Yeah.
Nobody has to know your secret fetishes, you know?
Yeah.
I looked it up. It's called robosexual, just in case
Is
you were
it?
wondering. Yeah.
I didn't. Is that actually a thing?
I mean, according to Wikipedia.
We're off to a really good start. This is a good start.
You know what I was thinking about is it's Baldur's Gate. You can like bed most of the characters in
Everyone.
that.
Yeah, everyone.
Everybody. If it's a bear man thing, whatever. I'm like,
It's a druid. Thank you very much. It's not actually a bear.
I mean,
It's a druid
does that?
who can transform into? No, there's a difference. But continue.
Yeah, I feel like that's sort of a the gray area of bestiality.
It is very
right?
gray. Yes, very gray.
You're like-
But it's clearly a joke in there too. So whatever.
Okay, I assumed they would joke with it. I'm like, there's
It is
no
a bit
way
of a joke,
you're hooking
yes.
up with a druid in bear form without them making a joke.
Yeah, they do make a joke. I think there's like a squirrel that kind of like drops its nuts on the, well, you know what? Okay, I'm just making it worse. It's getting great. Yeah, don't worry about it.
Yeah, man. So, how many hours into Starfield?
I think I'm at 30.
Man,
Yeah.
it's crazy. The game just sucks the hours out of you, and then you're like, I'm gonna take a break, and then it gets in your head, and then you're like,
Yep.
oh man, it'd be really cool to like modify my spaceship with some new engines or add more cargo onto it. And then what about that side quest? I forgot to do that side quest. I bet that's a cool side. And the side quests take
They're not
forever.
bad.
I mean, they're good. I think they're better than the main quest, to be honest.
The main story is honestly forgettable.
Yes.
I don't know how far you are, but
I'm
it's-
far enough to kind of get the gist of it, which
Yeah.
is like go around, collect a bunch of artifacts, rinse, repeat. I'm like,
Yeah, and that's not
it?
even really a spoiler. That's just literally it.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it does like expand upon it later, and I won't go into spoilers because that's not
Yeah.
that's not what we do here. But yeah, it really doesn't go anywhere. But then you have side quests where it's like you're now in like a Jurassic Park theme sort of mission, and then it transitions into now it's political. Now you're doing a heist. It's all over the place, and it's cool. I've really enjoyed the side quests.
Yeah, the side quest. I think that's the highlight of the game for me, for sure.
Yes,
it's just
100%.
like you get down these crazy side quests, and the variety of them is wild too. It's not just like go kill 10 rats. You know, oh my farm is overrun. You know, like do the.
Some of them are.
Yeah, there actually is a farm overrun mission, but
Yes, there is. Yeah.
most of them are like really interesting. I did one where this isn't really spoiler, but you find like a legendary spaceship, and like the quest to get there, you're like, I was in this intense shotgun fight in some facility. Then there's like a guy who sort of befriends you, and then he's like kind of your friend, but maybe not, and he's got clues.
Oh yes,
to the puzzles.
I did do that mission. Yeah, it was fantastic.
Yeah, great mission, right? There's all, and then like, yeah, there's booby traps. There's like a giant robot security force, and then like you get this awesome reward at the end of it that you're like, oh, cool. Like, I guess I'll just play the game with this now. And that was just a side quest, like an optional side quest that you're on.
And it was a secret one too, where you had to like get a message from like off of a random guy, and then it just starts it up.
Yeah. Yeah. Oh, yeah. Right. That's what happens. You're like on some other quest, and you find a piece of paper with coordinates to like some secret facility, and all of a sudden you're on a new quest. I'm like, it's that part of the game is super, super impressive. There is some jank. There's some
I was gonna say the game is not flawless.
No, I would say it's
it
very
is-
far from flawless. I'm kind of baffled by some of the like 10 out of 10s and like even 9 out of 10 scores. Because I'm like,
maybe it's because like the further you get into it, the less the jank bothers you.
you learn to get around the fact that the game doesn't teach you how to do most of the basic stuff.
Yes.
Like I watched a video today on how to use the cutter properly. You know,
You have to aim down sight with it.
yeah, well, it's not, so that charges it, but then there's also different UI things that tell you difficult. There's like all this stuff in it.
Wait, what? There's more to it?
Yeah. And so there just isn't like the game at no point teaches you that you could do that. Like even at the start when you're going down like a dark cave, I'm like, what's the flashlight button? I know I have a flashlight.
It does tell you flashlight at
Does
the beginning.
it? Does it do
Yeah,
that?
it does.
Okay.
But that could also just be a UI thing where it doesn't do it enough.
It does it like
teach
off
you
to the
and-
side, or maybe you're distracted
maybe.
by something.
Yeah,
I
exactly.
always
That's the
miss
thing,
the
is it-
little cues that show up for
So
like
do
half
I.
a second.
I do too.
Yeah.
Even if it's in the front of my screen, I sometimes miss it.
Yeah.
You know, because I'm distracted by something else.
What do you think about the amount of loading in the game?
So that's the big contentious point. I think a lot of people are, especially on the subreddit, everyone's talking about the loading and the space travel and how it makes the world feel less immersive and organic because you're just like, you're not in space outside of the city. You're in an instance and then you move to another instance. And I get that. And I think they could have tweaked it slightly where if you fast traveled, like it kind of goes to a bright white screen. And then if that was the load and then you faded back for the grav, it would make it feel a little less clunky. But I don't really mind it too much because essentially you could argue like in Star Citizen, grav jumping or whatever it's called in the equivalent is essentially just a long loading screen to get from point to point.
Yeah.
It's just, I got to admit, Star Citizen, it is very immersive. So I understand where they're coming from. But I'm not bothered by it as much now that I've played longer and longer. It's just part of the game. You get used to it, and yeah. So I'm not too bothered, but I do get the criticisms.
I think if you get stuck into a good mission that isn't having you constantly move back and forth between locations, then it's less of an issue. Some of the narrative missions are like, go talk to this guy. You're like, okay. And then you have your conversation. Then it's like, now go talk to this guy. And you're like,
the main missions are really bad with that.
Yeah. You spend like 20, 30 minutes in a row where you're like, I haven't played any game here. I'm just scrolling through text prompts and then queuing up my fast travel to get to the next place, running for like 10 feet to like get to their office or something, having the conversation. And then he's like, now go talk to this guy. And you're like, oh my God. Okay. Like, here we go. Like, can I shoot at something, or like, can I do something where I feel like I'm playing a video game here?
And there's missions where it's clear that they recognize that pacing issue is a problem. But I had one mission where they're like, okay, you've gotten the codes. Now go across town, stick them into the machine, and then come back. I'm like, I really had to go do that. I mean, I guess it's immersive, but it just seemed a little needless. But I think that's one thing I do like about the game is that they put so much effort into the environment and the world that there's so much to just see, which is really fun.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, they actually did make a cool side area that you can stick in the code. It's like that took effort, and it's cool just to kind of go through the pacing of it.
And every corner you turn around, the detail is just ridiculous. The interiors of, I never thought I would enjoy just going down into like all these different facilities. You know, it's like here's a helium extraction site or something, and you're going into it, and like the detail inside the facility is incredible. You can interact with like everything there, every little piece of paper, pen, wrench, whatever. It's all something. And they also use it to tell the story of the facility too, you know? So like if you're in a weird bio lab that's like doing alien research or something like that, or messing with little alien critters, then there's like narrative elements to that in there versus like a mining lab versus a pirate hideout or something. It's all really detailed, and just like it adds that much more to actually going everywhere and seeing everything. I do think I enjoy the cities less than I do the missions. The cities turn into like, maybe I'm spoiled from other games like Cyberpunk or Star Citizen or something
They
like
don't
that.
really feel alive.
No.
They don't.
No.
But I also think that's also because the people don't really feel alive.
No. The dead eyes.
The very dead, dead eyes.
This is my it's this and the fast traveling UI stuff that are like my two biggest gripes with the game is the zoom in NPC conversations. Like, what?
It literally just does this back and forth.
I get that's like Bethesda's bread and butter and what they like.
It literally looks like Obsidian, like old school Elder Scrolls games.
Yeah,
it's just back and forth,
and you like,
back and forth.
Man, we've played enough RPGs and single player games now where they can give you meaningful, interesting conversations without this like zoom in effect. And then the weird thing is if you're in a 3-way conversation.
Oh, it's very strange.
And the two characters are talking to each other, but they're both looking directly at you, and you're like, "Are you talking to me?" Or
it's disjointed.
For the amount of dialogue in that game, dear God, they should have come up with a better system.
Yeah, and I get why, because there's so much dialogue, right?
Yeah.
Like so many people to talk to. But what is incredible about Baldur's Gate 3 is that they've been able. I don't know if they mocapped everything. But the difference between the two titles is staggering in terms of the believability of and the realism of all the characters.
Yeah.
Like they're emoting a lot more in Baldur's Gate. They don't just feel like they're just standing there and their head just moves, you know? Another game that did this really well was Horizon Forbidden West. One big critique that the original game had was that everyone was super stiff. And in the new game, they're much more emotive.
Oh yeah, and it looks incredible. It looks
amazing.
Great character lighting. It's like some of the best I think I've ever seen.
Oh, it's the graphics in that game are mind blowing.
It's funny. They take criticism from their first title, they make it great in the next title, and then a Bethesda game is like, "Hey, your games are all janky and require lots of modding support before like they get good," and they're like, all right.
But also on top of that, I can't even imagine the logistics of trying to coordinate that kind of like that much mocap or whatever these companies are doing.
Oh
to
yeah,
be able to pull that
Baldur's
off
Gate set a standard that I don't think anyone's going to be able to match.
Well, I think they'll be able to match, or hopefully they'll be able to. I don't want Baldur's Gate to be this one-off.
For a while.
Hopefully they'll learn from it, and they can take what Larian's done and use it for themselves.
Yeah, yeah. And to your point about the more emotive characters and stuff, there's this very weird thing about the character interactions in this where like, I think it's due to the fact that they want you to progress through Starfield with all these different options. Like you can bring any crew member with you on your ship if you want to, but then they like engage you in their life story in the middle of like a mission, and you're just
that does get annoying.
And you're like, this doesn't seem like I thought you were going to tell me something relevant to like the situation we're in or something. They're just like, and then like, what's the cowboy guy? He's like, my Co. Yeah. He's just like, oh man, my daughter lately. And you're like, we're taking fire, dude.
Yeah. I was in the middle of the ship was under attack, and I hear Kara, his daughter, like, hey dad, can I get a book? And I'm like, we are under attack, please. like literally the ship is on fire. It's almost about to explode. And they're having a conversation about how she wants a book. And
yeah.
It does take you out of those moments, but
yeah,
I like the companion system is fine. I do have my complaints, but I think the characters are at least somewhat interesting. Mm-hmm. They're not my favorite companions out of an RPG system, though.
No, they're not particularly memorable, and I feel guilty in the game because I get so bored with the dialogue trees that go on and on and on and on sometimes.
They are very talkative.
They love to yammer. And I'm like, once I get to the point where it's like, pull out your gun and shoot the guy, I'm like, let's just get this over with, man. I can't. And then the AI people are like, wow, that seemed a little like brutal or something. And I'm like, you play this game, all right? Like the guy was yammering for 5 minutes.
They're very long-winded. It feels like
it's turning me into a space sociopath, man. I'm like, I can't listen to another word out of this guy's mouth. I'm just gonna blow him away.
Yeah, and like I don't mind too much. It feels because On the one hand, they talk a lot, but there's also not a lot of substance behind it. But
Yeah.
it's got to be so difficult to try and flesh out a world that is this large. And I think one trick, going to your previous point about it can be a little slow at times because there is so much dialogue and you just want to shoot at something, you want to engage in the gameplay, but it kind of can feel like you are moving from amusement park to amusement park.
Sure.
Where it's like, oh, you get kind of a taste of the politics of this area, but not too much because that would get boring, right? And then it kind of shuffles you along to the next cool moment in. So I kind of felt like I was on a little bit of a ride, if that makes any sense, in some of these quests.
Yeah.
But I didn't not like it because of that. But I did feel like I was more of on an amusement ride than I was like fully immersed in the story, if that makes sense.
Yeah, and I think when you compare it to other games, and I've been thinking about like the Jedi Fallen Order and Jedi Survivor games, which are kind of relatable in the sense that you get on a spaceship, you fly to a different planet, you land on the planet, you have character interactions with people, you explore this very diverse and interesting and intricately created world, and then you get back on your spaceship and you go to a different planet. And just like thinking about the way those games handle character interactions, there'll be like extended parkour sequences or exploration sequences where you're chatting to another character that's with you. So you're playing the game and having this meaningful conversation, which I just enjoy so much more because I'm like, oh yeah, I don't have to stop playing the game. I don't have to hit the little pause button and then listen to this dude try and like make me feel about him and his daughter's relationship.
Make me feel things.
It's very contrived, right? Like the characters are like, hey, by the way, when you got a minute, and then they're like, now let me tell you this heartfelt story about when I was a child. And you're like, this is just like you're trying. It's too, if you want to make me feel for the character, make it subtle. You know, like work it into the gameplay as we go.
It would be
through.
nice, but there's also times when like you're in the middle of a mission and you're like, I can't pay attention. I have a really hard time in action to focus on a boss battle and also focus on the dialogue.
Yeah.
And so when I'm streaming and my chat's like, why are you not doing the thing it's telling you to do? I'm like, because I have to turn down the radio when I'm driving, when it gets hectic, right? Like I can't focus on too many things. And so if there's a lot of action and then there's a lot of like exposition going on in the background, I completely miss out on it. And
that's fair.
Yeah. I'm one of the dumb ones, I guess. So
no, I think I don't like it so much. If there's a lot of action and they're trying to communicate stuff, then it sucks. But if it's like more of a, hey, you're going down this path and you're kind of, you're looking for the next ledge or the next way through, then that's like usually a good spot to, and there's a decent amount of that in Starfield where you're like, need to scan a bunch of stuff, or like you're walking towards those temples in the distance, you know, like that really fun gameplay loop.
Speaking of, how do you like the planets?
I think they're fine. They're not impressive. They're fine, right? Like,
would you have rather have had 100 planets that were maybe a little bit nicer and
for sure.
Yeah.
I think everybody would. How many people are going to hit all 1,000 planets? Like,
yeah.
5% of the player base? Less? Yeah. Most people would rather just put their 40 to 100 hours into the game.
Because when you go to these different solar systems and there's all these planets, it's like, oh, that's awesome. But if they were just better detailed and then each planet just had more things to do on it that were more interesting, I think that I would have preferred that. Not that I'm not enjoying it, but it does. It's like, yep, this is kind of the same thing I saw on the other planet. And that's true for this galaxy. Like most things are going to be barren, but even on planets that do have flora and fauna, you do notice a lot, and it just feels very static.
Yeah. Yeah. It's kind of got the No Man's Sky effect going there with the planet generation. And then you find a random base, which are all very close to you in proximity, which is kind of comical. And it sort of gives you this weird small scale feeling. And then you'll get to the base and it'll be kind of uninteresting. Like you'll fight through a bunch of guys.
For the first couple is fine, but then you start to notice, oh, this layout again.
Yeah.
I've been here before, but just on a different planet.
So I stopped going to the extra locations because I don't find them very interesting. Yeah.
It may just be only for if you're doing like side missions to level up or get legendary items or something. Because apparently you can farm for legendaries. I don't know how, but that's what people are telling me.
That
Maybe
makes sense. And you need to get a certain amount of kills or do a certain amount of walking or whatever to level up your skills. I do like the skill trees in the game. They're fun for the most part.
It is slow though. I was surprised by how slow it is to level up and kind of get going.
Yeah, and I couldn't figure out for the longest time where the lock picking skill was. I missed
security for some reason.
Yeah.
It's with all the ship stuff. It's like, what?
I know. I would think it would be right next to looting, but stuff is all mixed up, and so I was like, how do you pick expert level locks? It's driving me crazy, man. But yeah, and then to get more crew, it's like one of the last skills for like commanding or something like that.
Well, you can get more crew by building a bigger ship. Like there's certain ships that can give you more crew size, and then I believe there's also that on the perk tree too.
Okay. Mm-hmm. What do you think about the shipbuilder? Have you done it?
It's really cool.
Yeah.
I think it's awesome. I really like it. It's a little unintuitive to begin with, and it can be very clunky to get things to like connect up. But I can't wait to apparently it's level gated, so you will just not straight see. So there's different ways.
Oh, that makes sense. Because I was seeing some of those crazy ships. I'm like, I don't have those engines or like or whatever.
So there's different starports will have different items or different engines and cockpits. But then I believe I've been hearing online that it's either level gated or it's based off of your piloting skill in one of the skill trees. So if you can pilot, if you get all the way down to like the C class ships, that will either unlock more, or it could just be your straight level. And then you'll just see so many more options to customize your ship.
Okay,
and
so
it's neat.
It's skill gated or level gated?
I think it's level gated.
Okay.
But don't quote me. Regardless, you have to put a lot of effort and time into just playing the game, because getting to that C class is going to take a long time and a lot of money.
I wish the ship gameplay had more depth to it, because the ship builder is really cool, and I'm like,
it's really cool.
I want to have a big crew, and I want them to have their stations, and I want a big cargo bay, and I want an engineering bay, and I want to play around with different weapons and all this stuff. And then you like get out to a ship combat mission. It's like, yeah, just shoot at that guy. All right, he's dead.
Yep.
Good job. Oh, you're hurt.
Took out his shields. Now take out that. Yeah. Okay, good.
Your ship is damaged. Hit the repair button, and you're like, okay, that's it.
You can lock on. There is a like slow down lock on VAT system.
Yeah.
So if you wanted to target their engine, you can take out their engines and then board them, which is really cool.
Yeah.
But other than that, it does get a little repetitive.
It would be nice if they had put as much time into the ship combat versus, say, the FPS combat, because at least the guns in the FPS version, well, I don't think it's pretty clunky, but nonetheless, the weapons offer different ways to engage your targets, right? You have all these different options, and you can try and stealth your way in, you can try and snipe them, you can go in crazy with a shotgun, you can put down a mine and lure them in close, like, you have options. And then ships are more like, do you want to shoot them with your lasers or your bullets? And you're like, okay. Or missiles, I guess. But yeah.
How do you feel about the difficulty? What difficulty are you playing on?
I think normal. I didn't change it.
I went with hard.
Okay.
I found there are some it could just be I'm bad and I don't have good weapons, but there are times where I'm cruising through, one shot headshotting with a sniper, and then I'll go against a level 15 when I'm level like 25. So it's 10 levels lower than me, and it's taking like mag after mag after mag to take this thing down. And there are some enemies where I'm like, just die. Like this is just too much. Like, this is ridiculous.
I don't want to do a spoiler, but there is a mission on New Atlantis where you have to engage. It's part of the main campaign, where you have to engage a very powerful foe at one point. And I wasn't sure if I had to kill the foe or run away. They were just so strong. And I'm like, I pretty much just dumped everything I have into them.
I know what you're referring to.
Yeah.
Yes.
And it was unclear what the way forward was until I just ran, and then the mission kind of like ended, and there's weird moments in the game where sometimes the gameplay feels awesome where you shoot an explosive barrel and this dude goes flying over a railing and you're like, that was awesome. And then other times where you're just like, I just shot this dude point blank with a double barrel shotgun and he just like, he didn't flinch at all.
Yeah. Yeah.
And then just turned and like shot me. And it's really weird because then you'll shoot him with like a tiny pistol or like an SMG and they'll flinch like crazy and get knocked back. And you're like, so they flinch when I shoot them with the tiny bullet, but like a double barrel to the face, and they're just like, "What was that? Let me shoot you."
I'm guessing they just don't want you to be able to stun them constantly with the rounds. Would be, but I've also, and the AI in general. Sometimes the AI is great, and they have really good animations, like you said, where they'll like fly across after you shoot a barrel. And other times, and then other times, I have it where a guy was sitting, I shot him in the back of the head, and he just slumped. Which was like, damn, that's kind of morbid. He just died on his post while he was like a scout. And then other times there'll be like a huge firefight. You'll round the corner and there's just two dudes sitting in a chair watching TV, and you're like, what the? You didn't hear like 2 feet away? Yeah. And then they go like, oh, hey, what are you doing? And it's like, ew.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
Yeah. The AI is all over the place.
Which is not a good quality in a game where the AI are your main enemy. Right? They're the main challenge that you have to get past. And you're like, all right. When the challenge becomes how much bullet spongy health they have, it just turns into one of those games where you're not finding the fun, cool combat or the enemies that are outsmarting you. And that's the challenge. They didn't flank you and you're like, oh man, good flank. You got me, you know? It's just like, oh, okay. Do I have enough bullets and health packs to make it through that giant bullet sponge robot over there or something?
Yeah. And I don't need I get it's an RPG, so I don't need the combat to be incredibly involved.
Yeah.
Because what's fun is finding that really cool weapon and then having, attachments on it that make it even better. And that's where you get the power, right? It's not necessarily your skill, and you're not playing Doom and, swapping between weapons to counter them. It's
not that type of game. It's not that type of game.
But there are times where it's lacking, and it just kind of takes you out of it a bit.
Well, is this has Bethesda? Well, yeah, I mean, yeah, it is an RPG, but because they took the space theme and then the shooter theme and put it in there, I think there's a lot of, I would say, fair expectations from the title, and I think those are kind of at the forefront of a lot of the criticisms for the game too, which is, it's a space game, but I don't get to do the stuff that I like to do in space games, which would be like piloting a ship, for example, flying the ship over the planet. I see a lot of people that are really upset that they can't do that. They can't use the ship to explore. It's just a cutscene of it landing and taking off. And then the space combat is, as we discussed, very, very basic, where it just doesn't feel like there's a lot of nuance to it. Even though they let you switch power between systems, there isn't really much gameplay there. So,
the power switching is like, you're getting shot and you're like, I'm trying to switch to engines, and then it's a little weird.
Yeah, and it's got some sort of like semblance of like almost survival like mechanics in it when you get to a planet where the atmosphere is too hot or too cold or something.
Yeah.
But that's also not really that well fleshed out. And have you ever played like Prey or something?
I played a little bit, but not really.
That game had like great EVA mechanics where you go out into space and you like have to like push yourself around with different things, and like you have limited oxygen and all this stuff. And there's no EVA in Starfield.
Much more focused of a game though.
Sure. But it did have a lot of the same mechanics where you have to do a lot of looting and kind of craft stuff together, and you need to get new abilities that'll help you do different things.
My guess is the later planets might be a little bit more inhospitable, and you really have to bring the right tool for the job, where if you go on a planet that is like super hot, you have to have the right suit to be on that.
Yeah.
Maybe there's a one that is corrosive and you have to have the right suit. And then once you're there, the enemies are harder, and but the loot is also more interesting, or like has more valuable resources there. So maybe it's just a beginner thing. I haven't gotten to the end game, even close to the end game, or at least I don't think I have. So maybe that's...
It does make it hard to talk about the game because we get to talk about sort of the introductory experience, the first 30-ish hours, right? Which most games are like 12 hours and done, right?
Yep.
Starfield's like, oh, 30 hours, that's adorable. Like, so you've scratched the surface of the available content, which is the main selling point of Starfield. I think if anybody's going to play the game and they want to get sunk into it, as long as you can get past that kind of Bethesda jank, you've got just so much content, like an alarming amount of content almost.
Well, we were just talking about, I think last week, where a executive at Bethesda was saying that he put 130 hours, and that's when the game really got started. I
think that was Phil Spencer from Xbox or something.
Okay.
Where he was just like, yeah, I got early access because obviously I did. And I'm like 140 hours in and I haven't even beaten like the campaign or something, or he's just getting into some of the nuanced stuff. And you're like, what? 140 hours? Okay.
So I was worried by the you can beat the campaign really relatively quickly if you want to. And there's New Game Plus if you want to go down that path, which is cool. But now I can see why they were saying they're like 130 hours in and it's just getting started, because there's just so much. The side content is really the meat of the game.
It is. And I think what we're saying too is you can beat the campaign relatively quickly, as I'm starting to see now that you can just fast jump super fast. But I think because the repetitive nature of those quests is so boring, I think everybody just is like, all right, I'm going to take a break from grinding the main quest because it is a grind. Then I'm going to do the side quest. And then you just get stuck in with the side quest. And all of a sudden you're 10 hours deep into just like becoming a deputy or something like that.
Yeah.
Like,
and they are straight up like 8 hour long quest lines to finish off a full like faction quest.
Yeah. And it's wild, and there's lots of them, and you're just like, what? This is great. Also, I've killed off characters that I'm like, they might have offered me some more stuff. There was like that. There's like a heist sequence on Neon at some point, and I definitely took the path of most resistance because I was getting bored.
We would blast it.
There was so much preamble and setup to basically this Ocean's 11 style mission that like by the end of it, I'm just like, all right, screw this. Let's just get the shotgun out and just start blasting, you know?
And that's the pacing. It's hard to pace it out, but also make you feel like it's believable.
Yeah.
It's a tough. Yeah, it's hard for them to walk that line.
Yeah, they definitely slip up in certain areas. What do you think? Man, I look at it from the game engine perspective too. They're still using the Creation Engine or Creation Engine 2. Yes. So their ancient engine, it feels like it's lacking in a lot.
It does.
Especially on PC. My God, I haven't seen a PC game, let alone a AAA PC game ship without like full screen support and resolution options. Unless...
like everyone's recommending that you have to bring down the render scale to 75%. It's like, what do you?
Yeah, 75? I've never seen a game do this before.
Yeah, like what do you mean 75%? I can't get the full 100%. What is this nonsense?
There's a guy who already wrote a DLSS mod for it, and apparently this dude's making bank because he gets donations. Like, I guess you can download it for free, but people donate to him, and he's just making bank off of this DLSS mod.
Well, good.
People want performance in the game, and it doesn't perform particularly well, especially given the graphic. The detail's great, but the actual lighting and visuals is not particularly great. And the fact that it's loading into small instances of every situation and you're still not getting good performance. You're like, this engine sucks. And they're making Elder Scrolls 6 on it or something. Whatever they're up to.
I'm assuming they're going to be.
I believe they are. I believe they've already confirmed that they're using the Creation Engine for that. And I'm like, that sucks for people, because if you look at what modern engines are doing with Unity and Unreal, they've like perfected the asset streaming tech so that you can load in the assets you're going to need before you get to the like crossover, the transitionary period of the game. And then you open the door and it's all on the other side because it loaded in intelligently. And that's been like Unreal 4 and Unreal 5 progressing that tech. And then you hit the creation engine years after this problem has been solved, like 10 years plus of like having really good games with very minimal loading. And then it's like load. Like I docked at a space station, which in itself is a loading sequence. Then I get onto the space station and I go into a door and it loads to get into that section of the space station. And I'm just like, what the heck,
not only,
man?
so you can be in your spaceship.
Yeah.
And then you get out of your spaceship and it's a load.
Yeah.
You can see the city outside, but it's still a load screen.
That part is really frustrating to me. That kills my immersion so much.
Yeah.
Because you just want to be able to walk up, grab the wrench that you forgot or whatever, and then get back out on the planet. But instead you're like, hang on, let me load. Now you're on the interior. Now you can access your inventory and do the stuff. And now go load out of your spaceship again. And
that gets into quality of life. There's a lot of quality of life features that would just be so nice to have. It's like, why do I have to talk to my companion to access their inventory? Why do they have to tell me every time, like, oh, you'd like to access my inventory? Here's another dialogue thing I say every time. And then I'll show you my inventory.
Also, just
like, why?
Moving stuff between your ship and your character. Why is it got to be annoying? Why do you have to go to your ship first and then find the, like, oh my God, the user experience, UX, whatever you want to call it, is
I've 100% dumped like a ton of points into the not scavenger, but
I know what you're talking about.
Yeah, the weight one.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Everybody has, because simply just having to sell your gear is a freaking nightmare. It's the worst process. That's trading, selling, storing, moving your inventory.
And they only have 5,000 credits, so you can't even. So if you go to a dock, right? You're like, all right, I'm going to sell some stuff. They only have 5,000 to give you. So you're just like, I have to now.
Yeah.
Like,
and it's not even clear. It wasn't clear to me at first that I was selling my gear for no money at first.
Because it notifies you and you're like, what does this mean? It's selling for not as much?
Yeah. Like, I'll read this when I'm done selling my gear. And then I'm like, oh, wait, I didn't get any money.
I made nothing. Yeah. And especially considering later on, like some of the suits that you get are really heavy, and you just have like a couple of guns. Let's say you have like 5 weapons, and then you've got your suit and your helmet and your backpack, and all that weighs like 100 pounds or whatever. And then if you don't have the perk that increases your inventory size, you're just like, that's all you can carry.
Yeah. That was basically the reason why I got into modifying the starship, because I was like, I need to put some more cargo on this thing. Like, let me build a ship that has more cargo space. And I like, on one side, I'm like, I like that I can upgrade my ship to fit my specific needs, but I don't think it's my specific needs. I think it's everyone's needs. It's like, can we just carry some cargo? Like, why is the stuff I bring back in my backpack more than this giant spaceship can carry? Like, the starting ship has like pitiful storage.
It doesn't have a lot.
You're like, it's huge. It's like, it's got crew quarters, it's got big engines, it can travel across the universe. But if I bring a couple full backpacks worth of rocks I found on this planet, it's done for. You know, you're like, what?
Yeah.
Oh man, yeah, a lot of the mods. Like, it's not. I don't think it's fair to expect a AAA game to rely on mods, but so many people are just waiting for those mods to like make the playthroughs just enjoyable. Someone's going to come out with an inventory mod that's like
100%.
Yeah, we fixed Bethesda's horribly janky, inefficient, confusing, cumbersome inventory system. And it was one dude, and you're like, how did a game that spent 200 plus...
model that will just straight up increase your inventory space to 1 million. You can just carry as much as you want. And people will download it because they're like, yeah, I don't want to have to constantly just, you're encumbered.
Yeah, it's not a fun mechanic. And I can appreciate having limitations to the gear you hold, but you got to build a game that's fun around it, right? Like,
I agree, yeah.
Like, make me have a fun decision in a mission where I can only get a certain amount of items, or I'm specifically going for something, then I come back, or I feel rewarded when I get cool upgrades that let me carry more or something. But yeah, man, the quality of life stuff is very... I find myself having less excusability for Bethesda on this, because they spent 8 years making this game and over $200 million, and it's got like
Wow.
some quality of life problems that you're like, this is basic stuff, guys. Like, this is really, really, really simple user interface design that should have been like figured out from day one, as opposed to whatever this crazy malarkey system that they have where you've got like 10 menus you need to access to find out your resources, you know?
And each little thing isn't that bad by itself, but they kind of slowly add up. You're like, oh,
yeah,
like the UI at times. You're like, oh, the UI gets really janky, and then you have to, yeah. So it's just small things.
Yeah.
But if they just kind of tighten them up, it would make for such a more streamlined experience when you're just trying to navigate.
Yeah. Are you saying you don't like quantum jumping into a system, then having that menu closed, then having to just open the menu right back up
to go to the actual planet?
Yeah, you're like, why am I even looking at my cockpit of the ship right now? Just keep me in the menu and drop me on the planet, because I'm literally going to do nothing in between this menu closing and having to reopen it.
Well, I think it's because they wanted there to be interactions in space.
Yeah.
But there's just not a lot of interactions
scanning
in space.
your cargo bay. Okay. Like,
yeah, it's like, oh, good. Good.
I feel immersed.
But I like it. I think the game's solid.
I know.
I don't think it's a masterpiece. I definitely don't think it's a 10 out of 10, but it's a fun game.
It is. And I think people who can get past the Bethesda jank are going to get access to like 1,000 hours of potentially like really cool gameplay.
At least hundreds.
Yeah.
If you get into it, there's easily hundreds of hours worth of enjoyment here.
Yeah. And who knows how much the mods will improve that. Yeah. 3 months from now, it could be like a really pleasant experience if you download the like quality of life mod pack, right? Or you're just like, oh, it fixes all the jank that Bethesda didn't for whatever reason.
Because I think I'm at level 30 and there's planets like far off that are 75.
Oh my God. Dude, what is the level cap? I said my name.
I don't know.
No.
I don't know if there is a level cap. I think you might be able to get all of the perks.
Okay.
That's what people are saying.
I don't mind that, to be honest. I always got annoyed when you got to the end of like a really intense RPG and you're like, oh, I always wanted to try the double sworded perk or something, but I can't now. So I guess I'll just
I do think it's cool that you can, because I'm a trucker, so I'm going into space travel and research, so I can make like a cool ass, I'm a really cool ship that has research, and we just move around the system like a trucker does. So that's been really fun. I've been enjoying that role play, but at the end of the day, just give people the option to eventually get all the perks if they want to really grind it without having to start over from scratch, or just allow them to respec. That would work too, but I don't think there's a way to respec.
No, I haven't seen it yet either. There'll be a mod for it. Don't worry.
I'm sure there will.
You know, speaking
100%.
of, that actually reminded me is there was like a little Gamescom trailer or something that came out around Gamescom for a game called Star Trucker. And
yep, I saw that.
It looks cool. Yeah. I'm like,
yeah.
I'll play. It's basically Euro Trucker in space, right?
Yes.
As far as I could tell.
Definitely goofier for sure.
Yeah. Well, because it's literally like a truck cab
in space
with like rockets on the bottom of it.
Yeah.
But it seems like it has a lot of personality, and I'm like, ooh, I want to play that. And then I was like, is it going to have VR support? And I was like reading up on it. I'm like, this could be really fun, especially if it's got like decent joystick support and other things to do. And it seems like you're patching up your truck in space. You know, you got like little air leaks and stuff like that. It looks neat. I'm like, that one's definitely on my radar.
Games like that.
Yeah,
it's cool.
I just been waiting for Star Citizen to get that gameplay loop in. I'm like, it's close, but not.
It's cool how much Starfield is what Star Citizen is trying to go for in some respects. Like the whole, you take out their engines and then you're able to board their ship. But God, I just want Starfield. I just want Star Citizen to find, I just want them to fulfill their dream, fulfill their vision, because Starfield isn't it. It's not.
No.
But there's like glimpses of it. We're like, yes, if this worked in Star Citizen, it'd be incredible, but it doesn't.
Yeah, and Starfield is really one of the few games where you can do boarding of an enemy spaceship and go on and kill the crew and steal their ship and steal their loot. And like that is the game plan for Star Citizen, and technically you can. It's just not nice. It's not a. It's a janky experience. It's a janky experience.
Which is true for pretty much everything in that game. It's just not quite there yet.
But I will say, having been all over, because I'm always on the Star Citizen Reddit, the talk of the day is basically, I like Starfield, and it's made me appreciate Star Citizen so much more for innovating and going that extra mile to try and make the game feel seamless and high fidelity. Because, yeah, like we were talking about, Starfield is like loading screen, loading screen, loading screen. It's like you can do all the stuff ish that they're talking about that Star Citizen is going for, like building a base on a planet and modifying your ship and having firefights in space, but it's all instanced loading sequence things, and thus kills the whole immersion of it, where Star Citizen is going for like, you're not going to load, like this is all happening real time, and you can EVA and just go over to their ship and take their cargo out and fight them over there, and it's all just going to happen in real time. And
I'll appreciate it when they actually do it, though.
Yeah.
That's the thing. Is like, yes, that's what they're attempting to do, but another game studio has come along and they realize maybe that's not feasible, and they've actually delivered a product that is working.
For sure. I don't want to take anything away from Starfield's accomplishment in that they've actually shipped a working, functional game that people can play right now and are enjoying, and will get hundreds of hours of solid gameplay out of. Like, they limited their scope so that they could ship a game.
Right.
Yeah.
Which is sometimes what you have to do.
Yeah.
You have to make compromises.
Yeah. Although I will say, whatever reason they have for sticking with the Creation Engine 2 or whatever they call it is BS, man. Like, here's another interesting thing that's kind of related to this. CD Projekt Red, so they're not going to be making, I think this latest DLC is their final DLC. And
Phantom Liberty?
Yeah, I need to turn off my pick up the kids alarm because that goes off in the middle of our podcast.
Everyone talks about, wait, did he forget his kids?
Yeah, they can hang out there. No, obviously.
They're fine.
Obviously my wife gets them, and today's Labor Day, or whatever day it is. Is it Labor Day?
Yeah.
Something day.
Hell if I know. I don't even know when it's Christmas.
We're content creators. Holidays do not apply.
Every day's a holiday, baby.
Yeah.
Not really.
Oh man. But so CD Projekt Red, they're not going to be making more DLC because they're switching their entire massive studio over to Unreal Engine. Because
it's going to be a lot of effort to do that.
The Red Engine or whatever.
Red Engine.
Red Engine. It's a great engine. Obviously, it looks amazing, but they know better than anybody else what its limitations are, and they're probably looking at what Unreal can do, and they're like, well, if we're going to make the next Witcher game or whatever game, like, let's put it on
something else.
Let's put it on Unreal. Let's put it on something that we know is just going to get progressively better and is very easy to work with and has all these cool features, rather than spending a ton of time trying to upgrade our engine to have all the same features.
And that probably will help it when they are hiring new people too, because when you have dedicated people that are staying with the company for decades, then they can master your engine. But if you have new people coming in, fresh people, they're having to learn the engine maybe from scratch.
Yeah.
And they might be really great on Unreal, where everyone knows Unreal if they're in that industry. Or not everyone, but you know what I mean.
Sure.
If you have standardized engines that a lot of people are comfortable with, I feel like that would just streamline it for those people that are new.
Absolutely. And it's a less attractive job for a game developer to come over to CD Projekt Red and use their proprietary engine. And then you're like, well, now I want a job at a different company. And they're like, well, what's your experience? I can use this engine that nobody else has.
Right.
Which is obviously, if you're a talented programmer or talented modeler or animator, like those skills do transfer pretty well. But if you're an engine developer or like a level designer or somebody who's connecting all the like little scripted sequences together and triggering things at the right time, I mean, sure, the process will probably be somewhat similar in other engines, but you're going to have to relearn the engine. And Unreal is not an engine that like any one person can fully know. It's so complex and takes forever. So if you're doing the same type of learning with the Red engine, I mean, that sucks, like that's a skill set that's not going to get you anywhere else. It's only valuable at that company.
And I'm not saying Unreal is like the best, because I'm sure it has its own problems, but that's cool. I'm glad that they're transitioning. I think if they think it's the right call, I can get on board with that.
Mm-hmm. And if you think about it, this is how I see Starfield is like, there's definitely graphical limitations to that game. Had they built it from the start on the Unreal Engine, it probably would have looked significantly better. Unreal Engine Epic takes 5% of your cut of your profits once you sell over $1 million worth or something.
It's only 5%.
Yeah, it's not that much.
Huh.
So you get.
I'm just so used to the world of content creation where it's like.
Yeah. Well, it's like distributing on Steam. That Steam takes 30% right off the top. And you're like, that seems extreme.
Seems like a lot, because it is.
It is. I think Epic Game Store takes 10 or 15 or something, but they cut it way down. And
well, they're also trying to wedge themselves into the market. They want to be a choice.
Yeah, it's competition, and as much people want to hate on having all these different game distribution platforms, the consumer is going to benefit and the devs are going to benefit, because if the devs can sell their game for a little bit less because they're not losing 30% to the distribution platform,
good point,
then consumers can get it. Or if the devs sell it for the same $60 price but on Epic Game Store and they make more money, well, I mean, most of these studios, especially the indie studios, put a lot of that back into their games or the next game or something. So
or just to pay their bills because they're indie.
Yeah, for sure, man. So yeah, it's easy to hate on Epic or EA or whatever, or Blizzard, for having their own launchers and stuff. But the competition is very
competition
good.
is healthy for this thing.
Yeah, and I like Steam. It's a good platform, but it's a lot. It's too much, I think, for some people. Also, do you think Starfield is going to be more popular than Baldur's Gate 3? Because in the early access, it's already topped over 248,000 players on Steam.
Oh, really?
Do you think that's going to spike a lot more, or do you think they really just hit all the hardcore fans with the early access bundle?
That's tough. That's actually really great. That's a great question. It might get more. It might. Because it's Bethesda, and it's got some hype behind it, and I think the people that are playing it now, while there is definitely criticisms for the game, I think a lot of it is also very positive, and that goodwill and that word of mouth will spread. Man, it got up to 200. How much? 250?
I think like 248K is where it's peaked, and it hasn't really gone down. It's stayed in like the 240s. It
stayed consistent?
Because obviously it's a huge game. Lots of people are just throwing 30 plus hours into it right away.
Well, it's going to go a lot higher for sure.
You think on launch day?
And there's also it's Game Pass too. So it may not outdo Baldur's Gate, because it's good. Most people that are probably waiting for the game are going to play it on Game Pass.
Yeah.
And they're not going to buy it on Steam, even if it is $60. So it will go up.
Yeah.
But I don't know I don't know. Does it really matter?
No, I just think it's interesting. And I thought it'd be interesting to get your take on it, because you played the heck out of Baldur's Gate 3. I skipped that one just because I didn't have time to do it.
Yeah, it's long game.
What have you enjoyed more so far, Baldur's Gate or Starfield?
Baldur's Gate, hands down. It's not even close.
Okay.
Yeah, Baldur's Gate is my game of the year. Baldur's Gate is one of my favorite games now of like ever.
That's awesome,
it's that
dude.
good. Yeah, it is incredible. Yeah, so I'm enjoying Starfield. I think it's fantastic. It's a really solid experience.
Yeah,
fantastic might be a bit of hyperbolic, but
people
it's a very fun,
first
solid
stream,
experience.
people were like, "Is this game of the year?" Because I don't know why so many 10 out of 10 and 9 out of 10 reviews have been dropping. Those have been surprising me a bit. But I'm like, this is definitely not game of the year. Like, it's fun and there's lots of content, but
it doesn't need to be game of the year to be just a great experience.
Yeah.
And that's what I think it is. It's just a great, fun experience.
People like to get caught up in that stuff, though.
They
because,
do. There's competition. It's like, my game's better than your game kind of a thing.
Yeah.
But I do think, for me personally, Baldur's Gate 3 is my especially for an RPG, is my game of the year compared to Starfield.
Yeah, it seems like your dream game, since it's like fantasy. Kind of.
But it's not just the dragons, LevelCap.
I know you like those dragon people.
I do.
What? There's so many races in D&D. I can't keep track of it. Like,
there's a lot.
They've just mixed people with every kind of creature.
Yeah, because if you have humans and then you have elves, then you have human elves, right? You got half elves,
Right. High
gnomes,
elves,
dwarves,
dark
high
elves,
drow,
some things. Yeah, I don't know.
dragonborn.
Yeah, the dragonborn, and then there's cat people in the movie. Are those actually in the D&D thing?
They weren't. I didn't see any cat people, but maybe.
Do you remember the scene in the D&D in the Dungeons and Dragons movie where the paladin comes to rescue the cat baby out of the giant fish?
I actually don't remember that.
How do you not remember that scene?
No, yes,
Okay,
yes,
okay.
I do. Yes, I do. Yeah, I do.
So there's cat people. Are there cat people or no?
Not in the game that I can remember.
Okay.
But it's a big game.
Yeah. Yeah. You just think
there is a flying tiny elephant. And he's a detective. And he tries to solve murder mysteries.
God, I don't actually know all that much about D&D. I always thought it was a little more like Lord of the Ringsy in terms of like being maybe more hardcore fantasy, but it seems way goofier.
So, well, it is goofier because it's all in your head.
Sure.
It really comes down to what is your DM and what are you with your other players? What kind of game do you want? You can make a hardcore, gritty, maybe Lord of the Rings style campaign, or you can just go around and do whatever you want because it's all in your head and that's all that matters.
I just assumed that there was books and novels that were like trying to set the tone of the universe or something.
There is.
Okay.
And they do. And there's a book with hundreds of different monsters and the races and you can go into the nitty-gritty detail of. So if you want to follow it to the letter, then yes, it does have a world and you can follow that, but you don't have to. And most people don't.
Okay.
Or a lot of people don't, I should say.
Yeah.
It's their own world.
That seems to be the magic of it.
Mm-hmm.
Would you like to pivot into other game subjects? We've been talking about Starfield, but it is sort of the talk of the town.
It is, yes. Is there anything you had in mind?
There was something we mentioned on last week's podcast, or maybe it was during the Q&A session, I think, that we had afterwards. But there's like, to bring it back around to Battlefield, our poor old game.
The one that brought us together.
Yeah, I know. Well, I'm saying it's a poor old game because it ain't what it used to be, man.
Fair.
But there's the thing that's kind of been flying around the community for the past month or so is a streamer by the name of Ash. I think it's Ash Battlefield or something like that, who's an extremely good helicopter pilot. Like, I think you probably remember from BF3, BF4 days, like there's like the top 5% pilots and then the top 1% is like God tier.
Ridiculous. Yeah.
He's one of those top 1% God tier guys that you're just like, what is he? He's threading the needle.
It's like a completely different game.
Yeah. He's not playing the same game other people are playing. We're like, there's a guy over there, shoot him. And he's just like flying upside down through tiny.
He's doing like a loop. And then on the bottom, he's strafing you and like, minigunning the ground.
Yeah.
And then he's like looping around again. It's like, how are you doing that precisely?
There's one guy that does like these maneuvers. I don't know if this is the same guy, but he'll switch to the side seat of the chopper, headshot snipe somebody with a sniper rifle, then switch back into the pilot seat and like blow up a tank. I'm like,
kids are built different these days.
I know. We were all like, we blew up a helicopter on a dirt bike. How cool is that? And these guys are like, that's like every day for me, and you're like, okay, get out of here with your Rendazook crap, man. They're getting too crazy, man. Anyway.
So what about this guy?
Okay. So crazy good at piloting. I would personally hate to be in a game on the other team from him because it would
he's just that good.
Yeah. You'd be trying to shoot him and you wouldn't be able to. Like it just, it's not going to happen. So he basically gets dedicated like trolls that come after him every single day and like attack him in the games. So there's like a coordinated effort to just ruin his rounds. So there'll be like 10 dead. I don't know how many it is. It seems like maybe 10 guys are just like,
I think I saw a clip on this a while ago.
yeah, they're just
and
trying to lock him and hit him with missiles
all I
constantly.
heard was beep 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 beep. It was
Yeah.
just like the millions of different lock-ons.
Yeah,
Yeah,
when
and
the,
he
when
still was not getting taken out.
yeah, he managed to avoid a lot of it, but he can't really do much because he's
As you shouldn't be able to,
right,
like,
right.
because yeah, like you're supposed to not. It's a counter to a vehicle, but go on.
Yeah. Well, so he posts about it and other people post about it and say like DICE needs to do something about this because he's getting harassed.
Because he's getting trolled. Yeah.
Endlessly, and support your content creators, support the people who are showcasing your game and actually trying to make it. They chose to make it their primary game, and then thus they're giving you some publicity. So you should support these people and maybe
not even just publicity. It's like you shouldn't have people harassing other
there
people.
Should be anti-harassment tools for anyone, whether or not you're a content creator. I'm just I always frame it through a business angle because I'm like, these companies don't have morals. They like, I'm like, here, it's money, guys. You guys now understand that. But I thought it's an interesting subject, and I think I brought it up last time saying it. I don't think it's quite as cut and dry in that. Because you're like, how do you possibly argue the other side of this, right?
Yeah, I'm curious to see the other side of the story.
Yeah. First of all, I don't know Ash. He seems like a nice dude, very good player. I don't know him at all. And I don't know any backstory. I don't know if he's like been mean or there's been some build up to the trolling that's like being.
You know it on a surface level.
Yes. I've just seen his content. DICE built a game that from the very start I've said has had terrible infantry versus vehicle interactions. Like, having played all the previous Battlefield games, there's been fun balances between infantry and vehicles. I think BF1 maybe hit the apex of like where every class could at least plink away at stuff. Snipers could load a K bullet and shoot out the wing of an airplane that was diving on them and take them out before they actually got to do their
5.
What's that?
My favorite is Battlefield 5.
Mm-hmm.
But go on, keep going.
Yeah,
sorry.
Yeah. So you get all these cool things, and you could disable parts of vehicles and do all this stuff where you're like, oh, I'm going to try and get this vehicle, so I'm going to disable the turret or the treads or something, and sneak up. And there's been very cool dynamics between infantry and vehicles, and it's the better games do a good enough job where if there's a pilot that's just dominating, enough people on the other team will kind of band together and do what's needed to take them down. You need this sort of this ebb and flow of it. And you don't want a game to finish where one dude is like 200 kills or 100 kills and no deaths on top of the scoreboard. That's right. I think that is a problem with game design. And I think 2042, because of its terrible launch and so many of the talented players sort of abandoning the game for greener pastures, if you will, it hasn't really been either tested to the full extent, or when it does get tested by the high skill players, the balance breaks down completely, where you're just like, oh, this guy can dominate the whole time. So DICE hasn't balanced the game out in a fun, enjoyable way where best sniper in the world should be able to occasionally headshot out the best chopper pilot in the world, right? Like, it feels like that would be a fun dynamic, right? Mm-hmm. It doesn't feel like that's really possible in the way that it's set up right now. Feels almost impossible. Versus how many times that chopper pilot's going to kill the best sniper. If you get what I'm saying.
So are you saying that the game itself is making it where it's too easy for someone who is at the skill level to just dominate and ruin a lobby because they're just destroying everyone? And so while I'm assuming you're not condoning him getting harassed by these people and following him around, you also can share in their frustration that, like, banding together to take this guy out seems reasonable because he's just a menace, and it's silly that he can go on the streak, and you need to have these many people to be able to take him out and stop his reign of terror.
Yeah, and I don't want to say easy because he is god tier skill. Like, his achievement is really incredible, but also because it is a large scale public game, you're going to find it. Okay, maybe there isn't anyone on the other team that's at his skill, but what if three good players come together to try and fight him? They should be able to kill him, right? Like, it shouldn't take more than that, but the game really does seem to indicate that you need like half your team focus firing this dude down
It's silly.
to just
I
drop
completely
him.
agree.
So I think it is on DICE, but it's on DICE and more than just a harassment enforcement system of like
They need to do something about the harassment.
Yeah.
I think.
they
At least from the little that I know of this, like no one should be harassed in the game.
yeah, I mean all games should have the BattleBit type harassment report system. Like it's fantastic, and they deal with it super quickly, and all of a sudden you have a game with open comms for 200 plus players in a server and people are being relatively nice, and you're like, what's happening here? And like, oh, it's because they have a good like harassment reporting system. But I think also on top of the harassment thing, DICE needs to do vehicle balance in their games. Otherwise, this is going to happen, and the community's going to police itself, which is what it looks like right now, and it's not good, right? You got trolls and harassers trying to stop people from, I wouldn't call it harassing, but dominating a server, which could feel like harassment if you're on the other team and you're like, I've been killed by this chopper pilot like 20 times over.
And it feels like there's nothing I can do to stop
and it feels
him.
like using a stinger against him is a joke, right? He's just gonna like flare it and go behind.
It's been my biggest issue with the more modern battlefields is that their air to ground is horrible balance. Even back in like Battlefield 4 and Battlefield 3, the reason why I always used the straw back then was because I could sometimes snipe a helicopter.
Yeah.
And it felt incredible because I knew how difficult it is to, their reign of terror. And then they nerfed the straw. And then they nerfed it again. And so now the straw is like worthless at taking out aircrafts, which I get they wanted it to be used for ground vehicles. But then the only alternative is the Stingers and the Igla, and those just, they're boring. It's like, I don't want to have to sit there and lock and just like, oh, okay, and then fire. And it's like, that's just not interactive. It's very,
and then somebody gets
binary.
the last hit and you don't get any points.
Yeah, it's just not fun.
Yeah.
The reason why I love Battlefield 5's balance, at least when it comes to aircrafts and ground too, is that there's the Fliegerfaust, which is a reasonably skillful, but you can just take out planes constantly. Just flying by, you get it, they're gone, one shot, they're out of the sky.
And if one pilot has been going on some crazy runs, all of a sudden a bunch of guys start spawning in with Fliegerfaust, and now he takes 2 or 3 hits as he's coming by, and he's done for. So
right.
The players can have a reasonable reaction to getting dominated by air that is effective,
and they can't just avoid it by crazy. I mean, they can, and there's just a lot more. I just feel like there's a lot more going on with the skill and what the interaction of the pilot and the person on the ground with the Fliegerfaust or an equivalent gadget compared to Battlefield 2042 with a Stinger.
Yeah,
I just don't like because if you have a good, why is it always mini birds? Why is it always the little
bird?
The little bird. It's always them.
Because it's highly agile, right?
Yeah,
so the attack helicopter, which you don't ever see in 2042 because it's just a sitting, because everything's trying to balance to kill a little bird, which is like darting all over the place. And then the attack helicopter has no chance. It just gets hit with all of Liz's guided rockets immediately and just like explodes. And those things can't hit the little bird because it's too quick. It's too easy to dodge them. So that's why it's always that thing.
And I do sympathize with DICE because they have to balance anti-air for the Little Bird, the transport helicopters, and jets, and all of them travel at different speeds. Some are slow, some are fast. So I just wish that they would maybe change the damage on. I don't know, but it is rough.
It's a hard problem to solve, and I think
it is hard.
I think Battlefield games specifically have to nail that as early as they can in their development. Otherwise you get a bad gameplay experience, and the historical games have an easier time because you don't have helicopters to deal with, so all you have to do is figure out a way to like make bombers and fighters somewhat fun to fight against. And BF1 was great. You could snipe pilots out, you could use K-bullets to disable their engines as they came by, you could use anti-tank grenades on a low-flying bomber and like hit them with the grenade. There were the positional anti-air cannons. And
while you personally may not be able to just drop them by yourself, it's the fact that you're actually contributing to that thing getting taken out eventually.
Yeah.
Right.
Or
so
if the pilot is getting
focusing on it
a little too aggressive and they do a close flyby on an anti-air cannon and somebody happens to be in it, well, okay, sorry, you're getting shot down. Right. There's a little tit for tat there, and that's just so important to have in a Battlefield game. You can't let one person or two people get into a vehicle and then dominate 30 people. You know, like if those 30 people have to be able to come together in some meaningful way, and or less rather. But
I agree.
I thought it was an interesting thing. Obviously, his story should get some attention, and DICE should pay attention to it on two fronts, which is the harassment front, but also the game balance front, because you can stop these harassers, but it doesn't stop the fundamental problem, which is that he's just going to dominate servers endlessly without people being able to fight back against it.
Yeah. No, I agree. It's yeah, I agree.
Agree. Okay.
Oh God, my back. I don't know what this sucks about getting old. I literally woke up and it's just like, oh.
You tweaked it.
It's all tight.
Working out though.
Yeah, and maybe that's.
Did you feel it the day of working out, or did you feel it the next day?
I kind of. I felt like I went a little bit too hard on the exercise. Like I did some back exercises, right? And then I did like lower back too. And then I think it just kind of like a ripple effect up my back. And now I'm just an old man who literally just wants to lie down and take a nap.
Back is the worst. It's the worst injury because you can't. It affects everything. Everything's attached to your back, and you're just like, it all hurts now. Yep. Getting old sucks. This is the Old Man podcast, gaming podcast now. And the back especially is like the thing that when you start getting older, it's like, like your back's just like, I'm not going to do what I used to do.
Just even moving your arm. You're like, oh, that now it hurts that. Okay, cool. Yeah. Awesome.
Also, I hear, I'm not a scientist or a physical therapist, but
yes,
I hear that sitting down all day and playing video games is actually not great for your back. PSA.
I won't be changing my lifestyle based off of that information.
PSA.
How dare you?
You're welcome. Everybody who's listening, you're welcome for that free medical advice. You can skip your next doctor's appointment.
I mean, that also is so on tweaking my back and then sitting around playing Starfield for like 8 hours plus probably hasn't been the smartest thing I could have done, but I still want to play video games. Yeah.
I think maybe 5 years ago, 6 years ago, I was having some pretty intense back problems, and I just like went through everything. I was like, I'm getting a new mattress. I'm getting a standing desk thing. I'm doing all this. I'm getting like a different chair that's like set up for things. I'm going to move around every 15, whatever. And a lot of it worked actually. So
it could be small things. Yeah. All I can say is it's hard to be a gamer. Truly, this is evidence. It's hard being a gamer.
I think we're kind of like construction workers, really. You know, they're out there hauling bags of cement to the job site, dodging rebar falling from cranes and stuff. I mean, it's the same thing for us.
It's pretty much the equivalent, one for one.
You know, women can't get enough of us. They're catcalling us on the street all the time.
When we do go outside, which is rare.
Yeah, right. But they always see us because of how pale we get. You know, they're like, what?
We're like a beacon in the night.
Yeah. Well, they talk to me because I'm handing out sunglasses to everybody. I'm like, I'm sorry, so sorry that I'm blindingly white. That's what I bring to the beach, Matt. Just a bag full of sunglasses. That I can give to everybody.
You're very conscious of it.
Yeah, I'm a nice guy. I don't want to ruin their nice blue ocean and stuff, Is that a sperm whale? No, it's just a YouTuber. It's so white. That's how I describe. That's how I describe my body.
I know you're getting older. I didn't think you were that big, though. I'm a whale. You're not. Come on, you got to be nicer on yourself than that.
I know. I gotta do what you do, which is actually a workout. But
it's tough. You just got to do it.
I gotta do it. I do a little bit of rowing from time to time.
That's good,
but not as much as I should. Maybe a couple days a week.
Yeah. Just do it once every other day. You'll be good. 30 minutes. Boom. Knock it out.
Sounds good, man.
Just knock it out.
Yeah. So last year, speaking of back pain, last week I went to a San Francisco or a New York City event. It's either San Francisco or New York.
Yeah.
For Payday 3, which is...
And how'd it go?
It's fine, but man, 5 hours on that plane. And I will say I've been spoiled by COVID as a content creator. I know, Matt.
Oh, I was like, what?
I've been spoiled, Matt. It's been
Like,
so
where is
good to
this
me
going?
in every regard.
It treats you right, huh?
No, but for a little behind the scenes stuff for content creation stuff, and you don't do this as much because you're mostly streaming now.
I have been affected by it though too.
Yeah,
I know what you're referring to.
Big studios will do these big promotional events. They'll want you to come out and play their game in person.
Yep.
Because if you do it remotely,
reasons.
they couldn't possibly hype you up enough or something. I'm not really
Could
sure.
be security reasons too.
So they stopped doing it over COVID, obviously, because of all the lockdown restrictions. So instead, all these big companies started doing remote events, and they would just give you a key, you installed it on Steam or whatever, and then you watch their little promo video that they put together telling you about the game, and then you get to record it and play it, and that's how you would get early access or early footage to a game.
It made it very convenient.
It was so nice, dude. And that's why I got spoiled. I'm like, this is the way it should be. And hopefully all these developers will see how much money they're saving by not having to fly people from all over the world to their little capture events. And they'll just continue doing it remote.
Yeah.
And as you said, nope. They're starting it back up now. And it's tough because I want to play Payday 3. It's a game that interests me. I think there's a lot of fun that can be had from the 4-player co-op bank robbing experience on apparently the Unreal Engine 5 or something when it launches. Sounds good to me. I'm excited. I don't
Do you
want
to fly for 5 hours one way?
Well, it's not only that. The travel days are a whole day of work, essentially.
No, yeah.
They become a whole day.
You're missing an entire day.
Packing, unpacking, prepping, getting to the airport early, dealing with transport to wherever you need to go.
Traveling is awful.
So it ends up becoming 3 days. And then the actual capture time of playing the game is 2 hours.
It was 2 hours?
Look, it was a lovely event, not ragging on the Payday guys, but just a little behind the scenes stuff. And like, you're just like, I'd like to play a little more than that.
2 hours?
Yeah. So a 3-day event comes down. I mean, there was more stuff going on. I tweeted a little bit.
I'm sure there was.
They put on a whole bank heist play.
I saw the video of Twitter. Yep.
Yeah. Super crazy thing. I've never seen anybody do that before.
It's pretty neat.
Yeah. And I was talking to some of the producers and they're like, woof. Like, yeah, this was really expensive, but it's really cool. And I was like, yeah, I bet it was. You guys flew people. There's people from the UK there. There was people from the West Coast there.
This thing is, I can't imagine because Two Angry Gamers showed up, didn't they?
Yeah, I talked to Tommy and Bong.
That's even a longer trip for them.
Yeah, I think it's
essentially
7 or
2
8
hours.
hours of flying, and then that's obviously not the day of, because who wants to do that the day of? And then you have the recording day, and then you fly back the next day. And it's rough because I see my content, like I can't produce as much content when I'm taking 3 days off in the middle of the week. You know, I'm trying to prep ahead of time and a little bit after, but now that I'm a dad, I can't do like 18-hour days back to back to back to like make enough content to cover the gap.
Yeah.
So I'm just like, oh man, it's hitting even harder now that these events are going back on. And I'm just like, yeah, everybody says the same thing though. They're all just like, yep, we would love to do this remotely. Love to capture it all at home.
Did you at least have fun?
I did. I got to I got to meet a bunch of content creators that I hadn't met before. I got to hang out with Operator Drewski, who's now becoming, I'd say he's like an old friend now almost, you know?
Oh, good.
Although he's very young.
You've known him for a long time.
Yeah. So Operator Drewski, and then I got to see Big Fry and Karma Cut, who's like a... Karma Cut, I think.
Karma Cut.
I've talked to him a bunch in the past, but we've never met. He's a Milsim guy, and a bunch of other content creators. So it's always fun meeting people in person because that goes a long way, I think. Also, I chatted with Blue Drake.
Oh.
Yeah, you remember Blue Drake?
I do remember Blue Drake, yeah.
Yeah, we had beef like way back in the day. and we had a good chat about it. We put a lot of it behind us.
You actually talked to him about it back at the event.
Yeah, I did. You should have seen the look on Operator Drewski's face. He was terrified that I was like getting into this stuff. He's like, "Why are you bringing up this stuff?
What are you doing? Be civil."
Yeah, and I was just like, I don't want to have like weird stuff under the surface. I'd rather just chat about it,
get it out in the open, and just move past it.
We had a good conversation about it, and
well, good. Yeah, I remember him just giving us weird grief for playing certain games, and it was really bizarre. And I was like, okay, well, all right.
Yeah,
I don't know you.
It's one of those. It's one of those things where it's just like communication goes a long way, right? If people just talk to each other and be civil about things, then
we're all just people. We're all just trying to live this, live our lives.
Yeah,
we don't need to make it harder on each other.
Yeah. But that was nice. That was a little therapeutic for me. I was like, oh, hey, I didn't imagine I'd ever run into this dude, but now that he's here.
It's so different when it's in person, because then there's not a screen.
Yeah.
Hiding.
Yeah. And you're not thinking of witty comebacks to post on Twitter or something,
It's just face to face.
Yeah. You're just there chatting it up, dealing with your stuff. So that was good. Therapeutic. Overall, a good trip. And then I come back.
Would you do it again?
I mean, not the exact same trip, Yeah. And I probably would have pushed ahead of time. You never know what you're getting into, right? You're like, are we going to be playing for 8 hours, 1 hour, 2 hours? Like, if I had known, I would have been like...
It'd be nice if they would relay that information more.
Yeah, but at the same time, these big companies, they're like, we're not going to tell you, because they wanted us to be surprised by the big bank heist thing that they set up. Mm-hmm. Which was surprising. Actually, here's an interesting thing that I was expecting to happen, which didn't happen. I was expecting somebody to have a panic attack, because they didn't tell us that they were going to reenact a bank heist in an actual old school bank, which is where the event took place. So the event's happening, and then armed people in masks come into the event. And they had the Payday masks on, so if you knew,
but if you didn't know for certain, it's just like,
I was like, there's definitely people here who've never played a Payday game before. So if they didn't know, I was looking around. I was like, somebody's like 3 seconds away from like having a full blown panic attack, like, and just like losing their crap. And man. Also, it's America. There's a lot of concealed carry. I was gonna say, it's people.
A little. Like, if people aren't aware, and then someone,
they did a big security pat down before getting into the event.
Okay, well that's good.
Yeah, but you're like, man, if somebody missed something or whatever.
Yeah,
I was just thinking halfway through, I was like, this could go horribly. But I think a lot of people were kind of catching on to what was probably going to happen, because we're like, why are we in this giant bank with a giant vault and like all this stuff, like.
I'll have you know, I was a part of a robbery when I was in 8 years old, 7 years old. I went on a train to the Grand Canyon on a train.
Yeah,
and then some cowboys showed up. They were all stinky and they were on horses, and they robbed the train.
What are you talking about? Is this
my parents took me on like a road trip, but we went on a train, and then we got robbed by bandits.
So was this like a fun thing that they did on the train?
Well, I was like 7. I don't remember. It was a good time though.
I mean, was it a real train robbery? What happened?
No, it was a fake train robbery, like what you were just describing. I was trying to.
I was amazed at first. I was like, I am amazed that there's still train robberies, and let alone that they would use horseback. This seems insane.
I was trying to come up with a situation that was similar to yours, that I have a similar experience.
Well,
so we can bond over this similar experience. That's all I was
doing. The desert and the way to the Grand Canyon, like, I mean, yeah, you might want a horse there because it's uneven terrain. You take a car in there, you're going to get a flat in like a second. Radiator's going to overheat. You bring a horse, you can go into the canyon. You can do an escape route through the Grand Canyon.
But that was straight up like 25 years ago. So
yeah, well, that's when all of your outside experiences happened, right, man? Mm-hmm. Before you became a full-time content creator, and
It actually
you
scarred
shut
me, and
the
that's why I stay
door.
inside now.
Yeah. Oh, is that?
That was the reason.
It's good to get some of all your backstories coming out, Matt. This is some Bethesda level backstory you got going here, man. Like,
so why are you such a hermit? Well, back in my day,
Matt, you have to stare directly into the camera. Yeah.
back in my day, don't move anything else.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's never unlock eyes, and you will just with no prompt start telling me intimate truths about yourself. So
great.
that we can bond, Matt. This is the bonding section of the game. This is where we develop emotional connections so that if I die at a later point in the game, you will be like, it's not Ko or whoever, or I don't know.
And there are characters that do die, and I don't want to spoil anything, but I felt nothing.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. I just got to a point where somebody died, and I was just like, yeah, good. Now he's not going to bug me with his annoying prompts in the middle of a mission. I felt joy when he died, Matt.
Yeah.
Seeing his body slumped over in a pile of blood, I was like, good.
Wow.
Good.
I don't think I had that. I actually, well, no, I didn't know. It wasn't that, no.
Actually, you know what? And I don't know if this happens. It probably doesn't happen, but who knows? It's a huge game where I imagine that lots of different things can happen, but if that robot dies, I'll feel bad. I like the robot.
Vasco?
Yeah, Vasco.
You like him so much you can't remember his name?
Robbie, the robot?
I think his name is Vasco.
It is Vasco. I couldn't think of it. I'm not good with names. You had to remind me before we started the podcast. I was like, it's an M. Yeah.
Matimi0?
Oh, yeah, there it is.
Yeah, there it is.
Yeah. I think that's a solid spot to wrap things up.
Sounds good.
I'd like to thank everybody, all of our old and new Patreon members. We seem to get a couple every episode, and it's always nice to have people on. For those of you who are watching this, the many thousands of you who are watching the live stream right now, thank you for coming by.
Yes, thousands of you.
If you become a Patreon member, you get to watch us live stream the podcast and mess up along the way. And you also get to do a Q&A after the podcast is over, which is nice. It's a good way to help support what we're doing here. We appreciate it very much. And closing thoughts, Matt?
My closing thoughts are, I love you.
Love you too, man.
Thanks, buddy.
All right. We love you guys too. Peace out.
Take care.